What if literally everything you've ever been taught about being a good person is wrong?
Like completely backward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it. Following the rules, forgiving your enemies, seeking comfort, avoiding conflict. What if all of those things are actually just, a trap designed to completely destroy your potential?
It is a really, really uncomfortable premise.
It is. What if the very things we call morality are just mechanisms to keep you um, obedient and quiet and, frankly, profoundly mediocre?
Right. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're looking at a philosophy that argues our entire metric for success and goodness is just fundamentally broken.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a text that is famous, it's intimidating, and it is routinely misunderstood. We are talking about Friedrich Nietzsche's 1885 philosophical masterpiece, Thus Spake Zarathustra.
Which is, yeah, it's a heavy one.
It's heavy, but for you, the learner listening right now, navigating this age of massive information overload and algorithmic echo chambers, this text is just incredibly relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
We are not here to just, admire 19th century poetry. We are extracting a highly practical, radical toolkit for how to actually think for yourself.
Because the context here is crucial, right? We are operating in an era where the traditional structures of the world are visibly crumbling, like the foundation is cracking.
Yeah, you can feel it.
You really can.
Mhm.
And we're exploring the intellectual crisis of what happens when the ground you are standing on simply gives way.
Yeah.
You are forced to figure out how to stand completely on your own.
So the text centers around this character named Zarathustra. He spends 10 years in complete solitude up on a mountain, just gathering his thoughts, observing the world from a distance.
Right, filling his cup with wisdom, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And eventually he realizes he has to bring this perspective back down to humanity. So on his way down, he makes this observation that has become probably one of the most famous and definitely most loaded quotes in history.
Yeah, it's a big one.
He realizes that the people he's about to speak to haven't heard the news that, quote, God is dead.
Right. And I think we need to pause here and look at this statement really impartially.
Because people hear that and instantly panic.
They do, yeah. But we have to view it as a cultural diagnosis rather than like a theological argument. Nietzsche is acting as a sociologist here
Okay, makes sense.
because for centuries, Western culture relied on this singular, absolute foundation of unquestioned values.
Wow.
There was this objective truth anchoring all of society.
Right.
So when he says God is dead, he's basically diagnosing a massive cultural shift.
Yeah.
That foundation of absolute certainty has just collapsed. The objective measuring stick for good and evil is gone.
Which creates this absolute vacuum of meaning. So when Zarathustra finally reaches the masses in the town market, he presents them with two, diametrically opposed paths forward to fill that vacuum.
Right. Two very different options.
Right. The first option is what he calls the Superman, or the Ubermensch. This is the individual who looks at the collapsed foundation and says, fine, I will become the creator of my own values.
Which is an incredible responsibility.
Totally. Humanity, in this view, is basically just a bridge leading toward this new, elevated state of self-mastery.
Right. The Superman is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But, Zarathustra knows how difficult that is, so he warns the crowd about the default alternative.
The easy way out.
Exactly. If you do not actively create your own meaning, you become what he calls the last man.
The last man. Okay, let's talk about the last man.
Yeah, the last man is a vision of ultimate complacency. I mean, this is a humanity that no longer strives for anything, takes zero risks, and just possesses no inner chaos.
Wow.
They have eradicated all hardship, but in doing so, they've eradicated all greatness.
Okay, let's unpack this because the psychology of this last man feels uncomfortably familiar.
Doesn't it, though?
It really does. The text says the last man takes a little poison now and then for pleasant dreams, and they have their little pleasures for the day and night. They prioritize health and comfort above all else.
Right.
And it says they blink. Like they just refuse to look deeply into anything.
Yeah, that blinking is key.
Right. I read this and I immediately think of our modern optimization culture. Like, is the last man basically us today? Just scrolling infinitely on our phones in perfectly climate-controlled rooms, taking our little digital poisons to numb out any existential dread, like insulated from any real challenge.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
And he goes further than just calling it a failed life. He views it as a profound tragedy.
A tragedy.
Yeah, because the blinking, It's a deliberate psychological defense mechanism
Yeah.
to look openly into the abyss of existence, to acknowledge that you are entirely responsible for your own meaning. It requires immense courage.
Right, it's terrifying.
It is. So the last man avoids that terror by seeking only warmth and superficial happiness. They just don't want to grapple with the deep, chaotic forces of life. They just want the easy, numbing hits of dopamine.
And the really chilling part of the story is how the crowd reacts to this warning.
Yeah.
Because Zarathustra describes this hollow, complacent last man as a cautionary tale, right? And the crowd cheers.
I know, it's wild.
They literally yell, "Give us this last man, make us into these last men." They are actively begging for the numbing comfort.
Yeah, and that reaction forces a complete shift in strategy for Zarathustra. He realizes you cannot preach self-mastery to a crowd.
Right, the herd mentality.
Exactly. The herd fundamentally desires the warmth of the last man. So if you want to overcome this, if you want to become a creator of meaning, it has to be this deeply individual psychological process.
Which brings us to the core mechanism of this entire philosophy. For
Yeah.
anyone listening right now who feels that pull toward complacency but, wants to fight it, Zarathustra lays out this roadmap.
The three metamorphoses of the spirit.
Exactly. It's a progression from the camel to the lion to the child. So let's start with the camel.
Okay, so the camel. Think of the camel as a spirit that kneels down and actually asks to bear the heaviest burdens. It actively seeks out difficulty, obligation, and duty.
It wants to carry the weight.
Right. It takes on the weight of tradition and societal expectations out of this deep sense of reverence.
And all of that weight comes from a great dragon that the camel serves, named Thou Shalt.
Yes, thou shalt. The scales of this dragon literally glitter with the golden words of thou shalt.
Wow.
These are the accumulated values of 1,000 years. The rules, the moral codes, the career milestones you're supposedly supposed to hit, the way you're supposed to behave.
Right.
And the camel is incredibly strong.
Yeah.
It carries all this external weight into the loneliest desert, essentially proving its resilience by bearing the burdens placed upon it by others.
I feel like I see the camel everywhere today.
Oh, for sure.
It's the person working 80 hours a week at a job they hate because society says that's what success looks like. Or, the person taking on crushing debt to fulfill some external expectation.
Exactly.
The camel is noble in its strength, sure, but it's fundamentally just a beast of burden. It doesn't actually own its cargo.
Right.
So to evolve, the camel has to go out into that lonely desert and transform into the second stage, which is the lion.
And the transformation into the lion is triggered by this sudden realization that all of this weight is arbitrary. The lion is the spirit of pure rebellion.
Okay.
The lion encounters that glittering thou shalt dragon and instead of kneeling down says, I will.
Ooh, I will.
Yeah, it fights the dragon to seize freedom for itself. It delivers this sacred no to duty and expectation.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting to me. I'm kind of stuck on this transition because it is so incredibly seductive to just stay the lion.
Oh, absolutely. It's very tempting.
Right. I mean, our modern culture practically worships the lion phase. Being the edgy rebel, fighting the thou shalts, being the cynic on social media who just points out the flaws in every system.
Yeah.
It feels powerful to slay the dragon. But Nietzsche's saying tearing things down isn't actually enough, right?
Yeah.
The lion is kind of a trap.
It is a trap. It's a necessary trap,
Mhm.
but a trap nonetheless. Because the psychological burden of the lion is that its entire identity is still defined by the dragon.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. If your entire life is structured around rebelling against your parents are still controlling your life.
That is such a good point.
You're just doing the exact opposite of what they want. So the lion can clear the space. It can roar its sacred no and create freedom, but it cannot create new values. Reactivity is not creation.
Okay, so you have to become a child to actually build something new.
Exactly. To actually create, the praying lion has to undergo this final metamorphosis and become a child.
So what does the child represent?
The child represents innocence and, crucially, forgetting. It is a new beginning, a self-rolling wheel. While the lion gives a sacred no, the child provides a sacred yes to the game of creation.
I really want to unpack the mechanism of forgetting because on the surface, that sounds like ignorance. Why is forgetting a requirement for creating new values?
Well, forgetting in this context is really about the release of resentment.
Yeah.
The lion is full of anger toward the heavy burdens it was forced to carry as the camel. And as long as you hold on to that resentment, your creations are going to be tainted by bitterness. You will build things simply to spite the dragon.
Right, you're still reacting.
Exactly. But the child forgets the debt. The child just doesn't care about the dragon anymore. By letting go of that past baggage, the child operates from a place of pure, unburdened play. They build their own world not out of defiance, but out of joy.
Okay, so if you reach that child state, if you wipe the slate clean, what becomes your new compass? Because if we are no longer getting our values from the external dragon, from tradition or societal expectations, how do we actually know what is good or bad?
Right. Where does meaning come from now?
Exactly. And Zarathustra's answer to this is fiercely grounded. He says the compass is the physical world. It is the body.
Yes. And he offers this very severe critique of anyone he labels the despisers of the body or the afterworld.
The afterworld.
Yeah. Because historically, a lot of philosophical and religious traditions viewed the physical body as a prison. Just this messy, decaying vessel that the pure soul or the pure mind just had to endure.
Right. And he argues they invented these perfect heavenly afterworlds or, even just abstract utopian political futures because they were sick and weary of the earth.
Exactly.
Because the physical world involves pain and uncertainty and decay, it's so much easier to just invent a flawless, invisible world and project all your value onto that.
But Zarathustra flips that entirely.
Yeah.
He declares the body is a great wisdom. He basically proposes that what we call the conscious mind, the ego, is merely a small instrument. It's just a toy used by the body's greater subconscious wisdom to navigate the world.
Yeah, the text notes that behind your thoughts and feelings, there is this mighty lord, an unknown sage called the self, and it dwells in your body. It literally is your body. Your body feels, it desires, it suffers, and it prompts the mind to generate thoughts to serve those physical realities.
And when you locate the source of all value within the individual's physical reality, you naturally become deeply suspicious of anything that claims to speak for the collective.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if the body is the ultimate truth, then large abstract systems are inherently deceptive, which leads directly to his diagnosis of the state.
Right. He calls the state the coldest of all cold monsters. And maintaining strict political impartiality here, we're just looking at his critique of political machinery as an entity that consumes individuality.
Exactly. The fundamental lie of the state, according to Zarathustra, is when it says, I, the state, am the people.
Wow.
Yeah. He argues the state is designed for the superfluous many. It is a mechanism that offers a prepackaged identity and a predetermined set of values in exchange for obedience.
So what does this all mean for us? It sounds like the state and these promised afterworlds are essentially massive outsourcing agencies.
That's a great way to put it.
Like we eagerly hand over our personal moral compass and our bodily wisdom so we don't have to do the heavy lifting of valuing things ourselves.
Right.
We outsource our meaning to the cold monster because being a true individual, being a child, creating their own game is terrifying.
It is, and the last man loves the state because the state provides the warmth and the rules.
Yeah.
You don't have to face the abyss. You just have to obey the machinery, clamber up the social ladder, and fight over status and money. It's the ultimate refuge for those who cannot bear the burden of creating themselves.
So to break free from this outsourcing, Zarathustra demands a completely different approach to how we live and who we actually associate with.
Yes.
His immediate advice is to flee the marketplace. The market is full of noise, great actors, and showmen. The petty, buzzing crowds crave spectacles, not true creation. But stepping away from that buzzing crowd into solitude, it doesn't mean you isolate yourself entirely, right?
No, not at all.
It just radically changes the nature of your relationships. He introduces this concept of the true friend.
Right, because most people view a friend as someone who provides comfort, agrees with their complaints, offers a shoulder to cry on. But Zarathustra rejects this entirely. He argues that a true friend should never coddle you. A true friend must be your best enemy.
I love this concept, but it feels completely counter to everything we're taught about support systems.
Oh, totally.
Like, how can an enemy be a friend?
Well, you honor the enemy in your friend by recognizing that their challenge is what actually forces you to grow. An echo chamber just validates your current flawed state, but a best enemy acts as a springboard.
Right, they push you.
Exactly. They fiercely challenge your assumptions and push you to overcome your current limitations. They demand that you strive toward the Superman rather than just letting you wallow in the comfort of the last man.
And that friction is necessary for what he calls the giving virtue. He asks why gold is considered the highest value. And it's not just because it's uncommon or rare, it's because it gleams and it overflows. It gives of itself.
Yes. The highest virtue is this state of overflowing abundance. You amass intellectual and spiritual riches not to hoard them, but so you can bestow them upon others. You become a sun that must radiate its light.
But this concept of bestowing wisdom leads to a moment in the text that feels like a massive paradox.
Right.
Zarathustra gathers his disciples, the very people who have dedicated themselves to his teachings, and he tells them to leave him. He says, I advise you, depart from me, and guard yourselves against Zarathustra. Now I bid you lose me and find yourselves.
And he even adds this warning. He says, beware lest a statue crush you.
Wait, so I'm struggling with this. This is the ultimate anti-guru stance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
How can you be a teacher whose ultimate lesson is pushing your most devoted students away?
Yeah.
If you have this overflowing giving virtue, why stop giving it to the people who want it most? He doesn't want followers at all.
No, he wants fellow creators. Because if they merely adopt his philosophy as their new dogma, they have completely missed the point of the philosophy.
Oh, I see.
If they follow him blindly, they're just camels carrying a new burden called Zarathustra's teachings. They aren't children playing their own game of creation. He actually notes that one requites a teacher badly if one remains merely a student.
Wow.
To truly honor the teaching of self-mastery, you have to master yourself, which means leaving the teacher behind.
So he forces them into radical independence, and he retreats to his solitude again. But then this fascinating psychological shift happens. He has a dream where a child shows him a mirror, and he sees a devil's grimace looking back at him.
Right.
And he realizes his silence has allowed his philosophy to be distorted by his enemies. The culture is mangling his ideas. So he decides to return to the world, but he brings this radically counterintuitive approach to handling enemies and suffering.
Yeah, this is where we get that strange little parable about the bite of the adder.
Yes, the adder.
So Zarathustra is asleep under a fig tree, and an adder, a venomous snake, bites him on the neck. He wakes up, looks at the snake, and the snake, realizing who it just bit, awkwardly tries to slither away.
But Zarathustra actually stops the snake. He tells it, you have awakened me in time, my journey is yet long, and the snake warns him that its poison is fatal. But Zarathustra just smiles and says, whenever did a dragon die of a serpent's poison? Take your poison back. You are not rich enough to give it to me.
It is such a profound subversion of traditional morality. When he recounts this event to his disciples, he explains that if you have an enemy, you should not requite good for evil. You should not play the saint and turn the other cheek.
Wait, let me make sure I've got this, because I'm stuck here. Telling a snake it's not rich enough to poison you and flat out refusing to forgive? This sounds incredibly arrogant.
It does sound that way, yeah.
We are taught that traditional turn the other cheek forgiveness is the highest moral good. Is he saying that forgiveness is actually a form of arrogant revenge?
Yes, exactly. We have to look closely at the underlying psychology of pity and forgiveness here. Zarathustra argues that turning the other cheek and offering cold pity is actually an exercise of power. Yeah. When you pity an enemy, you are placing yourself on a moral pedestal. You are looking down on them, saying, I am so spiritually superior that your actions cannot even touch me. It shames the enemy. It is a quiet, arrogant form of revenge.
So by forgiving someone, you're secretly just elevating your own ego at their expense by putting yourself on a pedestal.
Yes. Zarathustra argues it is much more human, and frankly much more respectful, to get angry, to curse a little. A small revenge acknowledges the other person as an equal.
Right.
You are getting in the mud with them. He notes that a shared injustice is half just. He heavily favors authentic, messy human reactions over the cold, executioner-like superiority of pity.
That completely reframes everything. It demands complete emotional honesty rather than just performing some script of sainthood.
Exactly.
And this demand for absolute authenticity builds to his perspective on the ultimate suffering, which is how we approach death. He introduces this concept of free death, contrasting it with what he calls the preachers of death.
Right, the preachers of death. These are the people who are so spiritually exhausted, so weary of the earth, that they view life entirely as a burden to be escaped. They constantly preach renunciation and view death as a relief from a miserable existence.
But Zarathustra despises that worldview. He advocates for a life so intensely lived, so overflowing with your own created values, that you don't cling to it out of cowardly fear, but you also don't seek to escape it out of weariness. You just die at the right time.
Death should be a consummation, a festival. He uses this beautiful metaphor of an apple on a tree. You don't just hang on the branch like a rotting, worm-eaten apple waiting for a storm to violently knock you down. You ripen, you fulfill your purpose, and you fall willingly.
Otherwise, you squander a great soul. You have to live with such overflowing abundance that even in your final moments, your spirit shines. If you have truly become the child, the creator of your own values, your end isn't a defeat by external forces. It is literally the completion of your own masterpiece.
Right. And to tie all of these threads together, this text operates as a massive, uncompromising wake-up call. The objective foundation of the world has collapsed. But rather than despairing in the rubble, Zarathustra is demanding that you view yourself as an experiment. You are the bridge to something greater.
The mandate is super clear. You have to overcome the animal instinct for mere survival. You must refuse the cozy, blinking complacency of the last man.
Right.
You have to willingly take on the heavy burdens as the camel to build your strength, harness the roaring anger of the lion to slay the dragon of societal expectations, and ultimately achieve the forgetting of the child. Also, you can play the game of creating your own unique meaning.
You must become the self-rolling wheel. You have to stop outsourcing your moral compass to the cold monsters of society and instead listen to the great wisdom of your own physical reality.
So for you listening, the next time you feel overwhelmed by the buzzing noise of those poisonous flies in the marketplace, or you feel the heavy demands of the cold monster of society trying to force a prepackaged identity onto you, remember that your highest value cannot be handed to you by a system. It can only be forged from your own inner, overflowing abundance.
The responsibility is entirely yours.
It is. And we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought from the text to chew on. Toward the end of his journey, Zarathustra issues this challenge. He says, "Physician, heal thyself, then you will also heal your patient. Let it be his best cure to see with his eyes the man who heals himself."
That is so powerful.
It really is. If we spend our days endlessly trying to fix the world, endlessly critiquing society online, or trying to manage the people around us, what if the only actual proof that our philosophy works is the tangible joy, health, and abundance of our own lives? Before you set out to change the world, have you done the terrifying work of completely transforming yourself? Or are you just arguing about the paint colors on the walls while the foundation collapses beneath your feet?